Teaching mathematics starts with understanding what students are actually being asked to do. It's easy to confuse standards, pacing guides, or curriculum materials with the work itself. Those documents tell you what content appears, but they don't tell you what a learner has to think through in real time. When teachers take the same assessments their students take, they stop guessing about rigor and start experiencing the task as it actually exists. That experience matters because it reveals the difference between knowing math and navigating a problem. When you take the test, you feel the reading load, the time pressure, and the moment where you have to decide what the problem is really asking, which information matters, what strategy fits, and whether your answer even makes sense. None of that shows up explicitly in a standard, but all of it shows up in student performance. That's the first reason teachers need to take the tests their students take. It reveals the hidden thinking the assessment is actually measuring. There's a second reason, and it's just as important. Taking the test gives teachers a concrete, repeatable way to redesign instruction. This is core professional practice. If you want to teach thinking, you have to study thinking, your own first. When a teacher takes the test, the goal isn't to finish it. The goal is to analyze yourself as a learner and turn that analysis into instructional design. You solve the task, but you listen to your thinking. You capture the thinking moves you used, identify which moves would be invisible to a child, notice where the cognitive demand spikes, and then design instruction that teaches those moves explicitly and fades support over time. That cycle is not incidental. It is the work. Now put that into motion with a single problem type. Each bag holds 4 apples. There are 24 apples total. How many bags can be filled? Most adults solve this quickly, but when you slow down, you notice what you actually did. You made sense of the situation, recognized equal groups, chose division because it fit the structure, organized your thinking, maybe with a mental image or a quick sketch, checked whether the answer made sense, and kept going even if you weren't immediately sure. Those are the thinking moves. Those are also the instructional targets. This is an important shift. These moves are not just descriptions of expert thinking. They are things students must be explicitly taught to do. That means they belong in lesson objectives, in unit planning, and in how success is defined. If you want students to reason independently, you must plan for them to learn how to enter problems, analyze structure, choose strategies, use representations, monitor reasoning, and persist under uncertainty. A lot of instruction focuses on content like division facts or procedures. Assessments, however, often measure whether students can do the thinking around the content. That's why teaching thinking cannot be left to chance or assumed to develop on its own. Start with problem entry. If students don't know how to start, they can't show what they know. They guess or they freeze. Constructivism helps explain what's happening here. Learners build understanding by making meaning, not by being handed the first step. If students can't interpret the situation, nothing else works. It's like walking into a building you've never been in. You can memorize room numbers, but without understanding the layout, you still get lost. In practice, this means teaching a routine students use every time, regardless of the topic. What's happening in this story? What's being grouped, shared, compared, joined, or separated? What am I trying to find? What information matters? With the apple problem, students practice saying, "This is about making equal groups, and I'm trying to find how many groups of 4 are in 24. That routine creates opportunity, because it gives students a reliable way into the task. When this is taught consistently, problem entry becomes an instructional outcome, not a hope. Next is structure recognition and strategy selection. This is where students move from "I read it" to "I know what kind of problem this is." Bloom's taxonomy helps name the level of thinking involved here. Choosing an operation based on structure is analysis, not just application. It's like diagnosing a problem before grabbing a tool. Following instructions is one thing. Figuring out what needs to be done is another. In practice, this means teaching problem structures explicitly and repeatedly. Students learn categories of situations and practice identifying the structure before solving. Teachers ask, "What kind of situation is this and why?" before asking for an answer. Over time, Students stop relying on keywords and start reasoning from structure. This becomes a planned instructional objective. Students can name the structure and justify their strategy choice before solving. Representation comes next. Cognitive load theory explains why representation isn't extra. Working memory is limited. When students are asked to hold language, quantities, relationships, and steps all at once, overload happens. It's like trying to carry too many grocery bags at once. Nothing about the groceries changed, but your capacity did. In practice, teachers treat representations as tools for thinking and connect them directly to meaning. For the apple problem, a student might draw circles for bags and place 4 dots in each, build an array, or use a number line. The key is not the drawing itself, but the explanation. Show where the groups of 4 are, explain how the model matches the story, and connect the model to an equation. Representational use becomes an instructional goal because it supports reasoning, accuracy, and independence. Monitoring follows. Polya's framework reminds us that problem-solving includes looking back. Many students are taught to produce an answer and stop. Monitoring is how students become less dependent on the teacher and more mathematically authoritative. It's like writing. You don't submit the first draft without rereading to see if it says what you meant. In practice, monitoring is taught through consistent prompts. Does my answer make sense in the story? Did I answer the question being asked? Can I prove it using my model or another strategy? For the apple problem, monitoring sounds like 6 bags means 6 groups of 4. 6 times 4 is 24, so it fits. When this is expected regularly, checking becomes part of solving, not an add-on. Finally, there's persistence and support. Students don't persist because they're told to try harder. They persist when effort leads somewhere. Vygotsky's zone of proximal development explains that learners can do more with support than alone. And Bruner's scaffolding explains that support should be temporary and intentionally removed. It's like learning to ride a bike. Training wheels don't lower the goal. They give stability until balance develops, and then they come off. In practice, scaffolding looks like teacher think-alouds, sentence frames, worked examples followed by near examples, structure sorts, and prompts that guide attention. Over time, those supports fade so the thinking transfers to the student. Persistence becomes a designed outcome, not a character trait. Practice and fluency still matter. Behaviorist theory explains why repetition builds automaticity and reduces cognitive load. But taking the test makes something clear. Fluency alone doesn't create transfer. Students need fluency embedded inside sense-making, decision-making, representation, and monitoring. Practice supports thinking when it is placed intentionally inside that larger structure. So what does all of this mean for teachers taking the test? It means the test becomes a mirror for instruction and a tool for professional decision-making. Teachers take the test to identify where they themselves had to interpret, decide, model, monitor, and persist. Then they design instruction that gives students structured opportunity to practice those same moves until the moves become internal. This method is repeatable. It applies to any task, any unit, and any assessment. It should shape daily lessons, unit sequencing, task selection, and even curriculum evaluation. When you look at materials, the question becomes, what thinking does this require, and where is that thinking taught? The work is no longer, did I cover the content? It becomes, what thinking does this task require? And how do I build that thinking deliberately over time? That's why teachers take the tests their students take. Not to teach to the test. To see the thinking so they can teach it.